Sometimes things start in a very promising way, and with time, they start to deteriorate, and the final chapter tends to be very sad. And this is, for example, the case with many kings from the Old Testament. Take the case of Solomon. His initial phase was very promising. Solomon had that episode with God where God told him, "Ask me whatever you want and I will grant it to you." And Solomon answered wisely, saying, "Give me wisdom to judge all the cases in my country." But you guys remember how Solomon's life ended? He disobeyed God and ended up marrying women that were pagans, and he himself finished rendering tribute to the idols. So sometimes things start in a very promising way, but end in a very sad way. This can be true also for marriages, start in a very promising way, and sometimes also with vocation stories with priests and nuns. And I think this is also an image of Judas and Jesus. If you think about it, Judas and Jesus started in a very promising way, like every vocation story. Judas was called by Jesus. Judas received a calling, and Jesus called him by his own name. And I imagine that the first year of that relationship between Judas and Jesus was a beautiful year. But then things started to deteriorate between Judas and Jesus, although much more on Judas' side, so much so that today we've heard that he sold him for 30 coins, and later he would take his own life. So my question is, what happened in the heart of Judas? Why did we have such a promising start and such a sad conclusion? What happened in his heart? And we can only speculate because we never get to see Judas's heart. But I have two ideas that are related with each other. The first one is they say that Judas was disappointed in Jesus because Judas had a very political outlook of what it looked like to be a Messiah. Judas thought that Jesus would be a warrior that would establish Israel's independence, and people speculate that Judas was a zealot and that he had a sword with him and that he thought that Jesus was going to be that sort of Messiah. But as time went by, Judas started to grow in disappointment because he saw that Jesus didn't fit this profile. And then the second problem is that he started stealing from the common bag. And these two things are related. You know why? Because Judas thought that when Jesus would establish his kingdom, he would have a part in political governance and also in financial profit. So he thought that in stealing, he was only taking in advance what would be his when Jesus established his kingdom. So he thought, what's the problem with me taking in advance what's owed to me in the future? But I think that the crucial thing that happened in the heart of Judas was disappointment. Jesus did not fulfill his expectations. Jesus didn't do the things that he had expected him to do. So his heart grew apart from our Lord. And I think this has a great lesson for our lives because it has to do with Jesus not doing the things that we want him to do. When really all of our attention should be in how can I do your will. Judas was hoping that Jesus would do his will in his terms, but really what it comes down to is give me knowledge of your will so that I could act on it. So today, brothers and sisters, my encouragement is surrender our own expectations of what we want Jesus to do for us and truly make it all about how can I get to know your will better, do your will and serve others better. So the question to finalize this homily is, what expectations are you imposing on Jesus? What are you expecting of him to do for you? Rather than you surrendering to him to be his instrument in this world.